sin makes us tired on the inside. Sin is a burden. Sin makes us weary. And our particular sin is that she's bouncing around from bed to bed and man to man. And by the way, this is a sin that the enemy has used to make society tired. The sin of sex outside of God's context, which is not really sex in the Bible. That's called fornication. Sex inside of God's context is one man, one woman in the confines and covenant of a marriage. But the enemy has perverted sex into this thing called fornication, and he's made tired the souls of humanity, whether it's identity confusion, whether it's pornography, whether it's premarital sex with the opposite sex, whether it's wandering outside of one's marriage, whether it's fantasy, or even the outlandish atrocity of slave trade that is happening in and around our society, even slave trading young kids. He has used this perversion of God's perfect design for sex, and he has twisted it, and he has bound many. He's got many tired in their soul, and it's like anything living outside of the boundaries of God's context makes our soul weary, and it produces this thing called guilt. Now, guilt, by the way, depending upon what form it is or where it comes from, is not necessarily always a bad thing. There is biblical guilt or godly sorrow, and I'll give you a little definition of that. God's unique, intentional, loving treatment. Where something pricks your soul. It's God's wake-up call. It's God's neon sign that is going vroom, vroom, vroom. It's God trying to get your attention when you're tired on the inside. It's God trying to let you know that something needs to change in your life. That type of guilt, that godly sorrow is a good thing. It's God rescuing us. It's God pulling us back. It's God speaking to our spirit. It's God wanting to give us rest for our weary soul. But then there is guilt from the enemy, and I define this as grief united in lifelong torment. That's not from God. That's the condemnation. That's the voice that says you're never going to change, and you're going to stay stuck in this thing, and it's going to destroy you. And it's the voice that is just the voice that is outside of God's voice. But sin makes us tired on the inside, and that is this woman. Whether it's the sin that we have chosen or a situation that we have not, all of us have experienced what it's like to be tired on the inside, to which our Savior says in Matthew chapter 11, verse 28, "Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest."